Okay, I'm back. I'm gonna do a little Halloween story time since it's Halloween and, to get into the spirit of the holiday, I'm gonna tell a creepy paranormal story. Because I do have some. And I've seen some stuff and experienced some stuff. And I thought I could talk about the time I thought I saw a Bigfoot, but that's not really that scary. That's just kind of like, whoa, what was that? I could talk about the time I think I saw a couple UFOs, but again, that's not really scary. It's just like, oh, I saw something up in the sky that's unidentified. I could talk about the time I think I saw some kind of weird aquatic creature, but again, I think I know what it was, but it was just something swimming in the water. All of those things are kind of cool and creepy, but they're not really scary creepy. So I'll talk about the like spirit creepy stuff, because that is creepy. These experiences were by far the absolute most intense and creepiest of the paranormal experiences I've ever had. Now, I've never had any kind of experiences like that throughout my life. I had one experience when I was a little kid where I thought I saw something that I thought was an angel. But that was a very positive thing. I saw something I thought was an angel, and it was positive and beautiful and happy. So I didn't think of it ever as anything scary. So that's something that I just don't even consider paranormal, to be honest. But when I was in my early 20s, like 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, yeah, 21 to 25, I dated this guy who lived in a town about an hour from me on the beach. He didn't live like on the beach. He lived about about a half a mile from the water. But he lived in a beach town in a house that was like from the 1950s that had been added on to a couple times. This was like 1991 through 95. And he lived with his family. He lived with his dad and his stepmom. The house, there was the main part of the house. There was a big added on, like a den, an activity room, and then there was a garage apartment. And a little room, like the garage, the kitchen, and then a little room that went out into the backyard, into the garage, into the house where the kitchen was. And then there was a spiral metal staircase that went to this little apartment. And the little room, they used access to the garage apartment. All the doors could be locked. Also, they used it for storage. They had like a drink fridge with extra drinks. They had like stacks of sodas and stuff. And they had a microwave with like cases of microwave popcorn and just more or less stuff for the kids, to have, and it was there where we could access it. All of the paranormal experiences I had revolve around that little room and that garage apartment. And that garage apartment is where this guy, when he was younger, was dabbling into the occult, kind of experimenting with ritual type things, but not the benign and positive aspect of it, the darker side of it. So I think, to be quite honest, he let something in or attracted something in, and that's why it was focused on that area. And I'm not the only person who witnessed things up there, and there were things to visually witness. I'm going to rank them in order of the freaky. And the first freaky. Every time I would be out in that little room, I would have a feeling I wasn't alone. Someone was there with me. You know how you can feel the weight of another person, just their energy in the room with you? You feel like someone's looking at you. Someone's there breathing in the same space. I would always have the feeling someone was in that little room with me. But it was a tiny room. There was nothing anyone could hide behind. But I always felt I wasn't alone when I was in that room. And at night, if I would go in there to get a soda or go in there to pop some popcorn, sometimes I would hear footsteps on that metal spiral staircase, and there was nowhere for a person to come or go, and the doors were usually kept locked. But I would have my back to the staircase, messing around with the little fridge or the microwave, and I'd hear ting, 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 or ting, 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 feet, you know, steps up and down the spiral staircase, metal spiral staircase. And I would whip around and look, and there's nobody there. And I never saw any orbs. I never saw any strange shadows. I never saw any mist. I never saw anything like that. I never saw anything. I never saw the staircase moving. I never saw a thing. I just had the feeling that somebody was in there with me, and I would occasionally hear footsteps going up and down those stairs. So that's the lowest level of the freaky. The next level of the freaky, for a while they had a boarder, a woman who was a friend of the family who was living in the garage apartment, and she had a cat. And this guy and his friends and I would all hang out in this little activity room they had at the house, this den. And the woman that was renting the garage apartment, more than once, she would come home and she would come storming down the stairs and slam her way into the room and just start cussing us out. You know, y'all are, you know, why are y'all messing with my cat? Y'all need to quit fucking with my cat. That's not cool. It's a cat. Why are you doing this to me? And we didn't know what she was talking about. Nobody in our group was messing with her cat, but she said she would come home, the cat would be upset, the cat would be nervous, the cat would be really skittish, it would just be crouched down looking at the door coming into the garage apartment. And she would be trying to go about her business, and the cat would just be sitting there crouched, thrashing its tail, watching the door. And we explained to her, why would we mess with your cat? You know, we have our own fun stuff to do that definitely doesn't include messing with your cat. We wouldn't mess with your cat. And she, you know, sometimes she would think we were outside the door messing with the cat because the cat would be attracted to the door or attracted to something up there. And she would fling that door open and scream, but we were down in the den doing nothing. So she didn't live there that long. She moved out. But I always, you know, I knew none of us were messing with her cat. But she just swore we were tormenting her cat. And that's why her cat was always on edge and always agitated and always, you know, skittish and jumping at shadows and staring at things. So that's like the second level of the freaky at that house. The third level of the freaky. The guy, his dad was some higher up in an industrial facility. He worked rotating shifts. So like 1 month he might work a day shift, 1 month he might work second shift, 1 month he might work graveyard shift. The guy I dated, he did industrial type work, but it depended. He sometimes, he worked more or less temp jobs at the time. And he would work contracts. So he might have a contract where he was day work at a facility. You know, he might have a contract where he worked overnight at a facility. Or, you know, in between. So there was one time that both my ex and his dad were working graveyard shifts. And I would come over, hang out with my ex, and then he would have to get ready to go to work. I would stay, sleep. Before he got, you know, he'd get home from work in the morning about the time I'd have to leave to go back to Houston so I could go to work or class or whatever I had to do. And so I would just sleep there and get up and get ready and have breakfast with him and then go on, when he got home, and go on my way. Well, his mom wasn't particularly, her stepmom wasn't particularly sociable. She'd usually, if it was just me and her in the house alone, she would pretty much lock herself in the master suite. And, you know, unless she was out in the kitchen getting herself something to eat or drink, she would just be back in the master suite. So it was pretty much me in this big house. And I would mostly stay in his room. And so one night I kept hearing what sounded like someone walking around in the garage apartment, like, you know, creaks, like footstep creaks. And I thought, there's not anybody here except me and stepmom. You know, there's not supposed to be anybody here except me and stepmom. So I came out, checked all the doors. All the doors into the house are locked. All the doors going into the room that you access the garage apartment are locked. I go up the stairs, the door into the garage apartment is locked. And it's locked from the outside. Okay? So it quiets down, and I go back in, and then I start hearing it again. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm done. It's like 3 o'clock in the morning by that point. So I get dressed, and I pack all my stuff in my backpack that I would carry back and forth to his house. And I go into, they have like a little sitting room right when you come in the front door. And then there's the dining room. So I go and I'm sitting on the sofa in the sitting room. And I'm going to write him a note and just let him know that I forgot I needed to do something. So I headed on back to Houston to my apartment, and I'm just going to take a nap there before I go to work. And so I'm just writing him this note, and I'm going to leave it, because I'm not going to tell him, look, I'm hearing stuff. I just tell him I have to go home. So, sorry I wasn't here when you got home. This was well before cell phones and pagers and stuff like that. I mean, people had pagers and mobile phones, but we didn't, you know. So I had no way to contact him. It's just leave a note and leave. And I'm sitting in the living room writing this little note. Okay. And I start hearing the footsteps again. I'm like, okay, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm going back to Houston. And I'm writing the note, and I start paying attention to it. And I realize the footsteps aren't just in the garage apartment. They're continuing across the width of the house, pacing back and forth. And I realize there's no way, there's wall there. Okay, and there's no access. There's access to the attic and that part of the main wing of the house, and then there's access into the garage apartment, but there's no access between the two spaces. So whatever was walking around up there, leaving creaking footsteps, was going through the wall, over my head, the whole length of the house. Going through the garage apartment, through the wall, into the attic, over my head, back over my head, through the wall into the garage apartment. So I scribbled that note, and I put it down, and I locked the door behind me, and I drove fast back to Houston. And I never stayed there by myself without him or his dad there again. And that was level 3 freak. Level 4 freak? Oh man, this gives me the chills thinking about it. I was not the only person to witness this. When there wasn't a boarder there, we would have access to going up into the garage apartment to hang out and be our little, you know, chill out space, because the way it was situated over the garage, it wasn't over the main part of the house. So if his dad was sleeping because he had to work a shift, we wouldn't disturb his dad going up there watching TV and watching a movie. You know, they have VCR and a TV and everything up there. That it was like a bed and a sofa, and it was a little apartment. It was a little studio apartment. So about 6 of us were up there watching a movie one night, and it just felt really weird in that room. I hated to be up in that room. I would never go in there alone. Weird stuff always happened in that room. Like I said, never felt alone. Felt like someone was watching me. Felt like there was always something in a corner. They had some decor items. There was like a shelf with the decor items kind of opposite where the TV was. And a bunch of us, like 5 or 6 of us maybe, are up there watching a movie. And I'm really uncomfortable, and there's this other guy, a little bit younger guy, friend of my ex's, and I look over and I catch his eye, and he's looking off to the side, and his eyes are really big, and his mouth is kind of open. Like, he sees something that's caught his attention, and I look, and the blinds on the window are very slowly and gently moving, like maybe someone's pulling them and then letting them fall back. Pulling them and letting them fall back. And this goes on for a few minutes, and he looks at me and catches my eye, and I look at him, and I just kind of shake my head, and it stopped after a while. I don't know if it could have been wind coming in through a crack in the window. I don't know. I just know that it looked like someone was pulling the blind and then letting it fall back gently. So we're sitting there watching this movie, and nobody else knows what's going on, and we're not saying anything. And this guy and I keep shooting looks at each other, and then we see something out of the corner of our eye move, and we look. And he looks with me, And I swear to you guys, there was a candlestick on this dresser. The candlestick slid like 6 inches and then boom on its side like somebody slammed it. So, like, let's say my phone is the candlestick. It slid and then boom. And everybody jumped at that point and looks over at the dresser and the candlestick's on its side. And the guy I was dating is like, well, what happened? And I said, the candlestick fell over. And the guy, the kid, the younger guy who was in the corner said, no, it didn't fall over. It slid across the counter and slammed over. Like something slid it and slammed it. And the guy that lived there that I was dating, he just kind of, you know, raised his eyebrow, and he wasn't too happy about the situation, but, you know, he didn't make a big deal of it. The other friends laughed at us, you know, ha ha ha, y'all are seeing stuff. What have y'all been smoking? What have y'all been drinking? But we hadn't, you know, none of that stuff. We were completely sober. Okay, we hadn't been drinking, we hadn't been smoking weed, we hadn't been doing nothing. So, but yeah, we're sitting there and this candlestick slide slam. And that's the last time I ever went up into that room. And there's another thing that happened to me in that room that I'm not going to talk about. But that would have been the 5th level freaky, and I'm not going to talk about the 5th level freaky. Yeah, here comes Miss Ella. She's like, Mama, it's scary. Oh, Bella. But, okay. I gave her some catnip for a Halloween treat. So, yeah, that's the paranormal freaky. The feeling that somebody's in the room with me, okay, that I can blow off as just being uncomfortable. The kind of, you know, the steps on the metal staircase, well, you know, it's an older house down by the coast. The ground isn't particularly stable. And, you know, okay, I'll admit that's, you know, weird. The woman with her cat, you know, maybe there was an insect infestation that I didn't know about. Maybe there was something that was freaking the cat out. I don't know. Maybe there was one of the group of friends messing with the cat, although I don't know when they would have been doing it because we were all there at the same time. So I don't know about that. That's, you know, unexplainable. The footsteps over my head, you know, again, old house, unstable ground, creaky, foundation could be off, who knows. But it was like pacing back and forth, back and forth. That is really hard to, blow off, you know. And then the big freaky, when we're up there watching a movie and the one guy and I see the blind kind of moving, and then that's just okay, you know, maybe there's like a little crack in the window where the foundation settled and the wind is, maybe. But when that candlestick slid and slammed, no, I saw it, because we looked, we first saw it and we both looked, and that's not the wind, that's not the foundation settling, that's not like a bug knocking something. That was, I've seen videos of things moving, and whenever I see something like that, it really freaks me out because I've seen something just move. You know, hearing something, okay, we hear things. Seeing, you know, little mists and orbs and kind of things out of the corner of our eye, okay, you know, it happens. But seeing something that physical and that, you know, obvious, it's something happening, you can't discount that. So yeah, I broke up with the guy, and not because of that, but simply because the relationship went really sour. I broke up with him, never spoke to him again, really had like a couple chance meetings with him, but really never initiated any more contact with him. Haven't seen nor spoken to him in almost 20 years now, you know, close to 20 years. So, in all those years, I've never had another paranormal experience like that. I've never really had any before, and I haven't had any since. But that house, that room where that guy would experiment and dabble in these dark occult things, something was in that room. And something had been invited in or allowed in or found its way in and was inhabiting that room where he would have all his ritual tools and do all these ritual acts. And yeah. So I've never spoken to him. I really haven't even gone back to that town many times. So thankfully whatever it was stayed there and never followed me or back. So I consider myself lucky. So that is my spooky Halloween paranormal story. And yes, it did really happen. So I will see you guys later, and eventually I'll tell my other kind of more fun and cool and interesting paranormal stories. So happy Halloween. I hope you guys have a fun night. Bye.